The seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down. Yes, the Monday Club is back. It is good to have you all with us. Monday Club, Jonathan Boyce'S with me as well. Jonathan, how the devil are you?
I'm not bad at all. Looking forward to another trip along memory lane on the bus, and I'm sure there's been plenty to talk about. We might even be letting some Scorpions on board by the looks of the news today as well.
Oh, I love it, mate. You're getting closer to sounding like Hugh Keevans on Super Scoreboard by the minute. But hopefully it's a trip not far too down memory lane, as current affairs, Jonathan, are quite important right now as well. Celtic being linked with more signings. Money bags, Nicholson. What do we make of that? We've got it all to talk about tonight on the Monday Club. Before we get things kicked off, obviously, we need to give a big shout out to our first ever sponsors, fanboyfootball.com. Check them out for cool prints, for t-shirts, all on the site. Have a look. We put the link in the wee banner thing at the bottom. The logo's up there at the top. Fanboyfootball.com. Delighted to have them sponsoring us and looking forward to seeing what else they come up with in the coming year. I'm shite at all this, eh? Anyway, right. Celtic chat, mate. Celtic chat. We are beginning to become quite an eventful team in January. Miracles would never cease, Jonathan. We've got everyone joining on the bus as well, so a big shout out to them before we get stuck in as well. Conor McCann, P. McGinley, Bruce FM, the Brown Warriors in, Jason Blackson, Martin K. Alrighty, folks. Alrighty, Martin. What is happening? Liam Greenlaw. All right, troops. Liam made a good fist of it at the weekend on the Double Doon quiz. We've got Paul Gilston saying, hail, hail. Chris Kerr, he loves Monday nights now. Love that, mate. Love that. If you can hear a slight echo at the other end, that's because Jonathan's fanning about with technology, you know, because he can't help himself. Stephen Thomas.
Like keep things fresh. Keep you on your toes.
I know. I think I can hear football commentary as well, mate. Yeah, so make sure that door's shut. Scott Housen saying, hail, hail, troops. Yes. Michael Nicholson doing the CEO job right, just getting on with it in the background. Lowell was the anomaly to the role with always being in the public eye. Leave that part to the manager. Love it. Glasgow Rebels in. Russell, you sound like you're in a stadium. Maybe my microphone's too loud. I don't know. I should be all right. We checked the levels before we came on, honest. Hail, hail, Bhoycie, says Kenny. That is good. And hail, hail, the Monday Club from Paul McFarlane. Yes, right. That is sponsors out the way. Saying hello to everyone out the way. We're 5.5 minutes in because of that really overly long intro that I insist on doing every show. Let's get stuck into it. Right. So, we woke up with news in the past week that has caught us off guard. Now, the first one being Riley McGree, the Scorpion King. I don't know, I'm sure everyone's seen that viral goal he scored in the A-League. A potential £3 million signing. It is still to be confirmed, of course. But it's came out of nowhere. This is exciting times, Jonathan, when you're getting linked with players that are obviously operated in the UK before. He's been with Birmingham City of late, right up till December. I know he's registered to an MLS side. 3 goals in 28 games for Birmingham as well. I mean, is this a sort of signing that should really excite Celtic fans, Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems to have caught, as you say, most of us off guard. It wasn't one we were really expecting too much. It does seem very interesting looking at the news that Ange seems to have been very instrumental and very hands-on in getting this boy in. There seems to have been quite a lot of interest from down south of the border as well in him. Obviously, don't know too much about him personally, but certainly as a welcome addition to the squad. And the board seem to have lost their marbles over it, Russell, because that's not £3 million they're spending.
No, I agree with that. And the thing is, I mean, the beauty of the McGree signing is we've got to kind of treat him with the same sort of enthusiasm, I think, that what we've been treating the Japanese trio that have came in at the in the 1st of January, because it's quite obvious that McGree, despite being relatively close to being under our nose, considering he's only in the Championship down south, I think he's very much, again, a player identified by Ange Postecoglou, signed by Ange Postecoglou, or will be signed, hopefully, by Ange Postecoglou, on his say-so. And I think that, for me, is something that's really encouraging, because Ange has got a philosophy on how he wants to play. He's got ideologies about the type of characters he needs, the type of ethos they play with, i.e. work rate, i.e. are they usually high-pressing players? They've got to be good technically. He likes pace. We know he's going to be always leaning towards buying forward-thinking players. Defence might get a wee bit overlooked maybe for some at times. That's another debate, though. I think it's just really refreshing to see a player like McGree coming in, firstly under the radar, if he does sign, because this is really just growing arms and legs like that. That's an exciting thing for me. We've discussed on the Monday Club, Jonathan, that Rogic and Turnbull don't strike you as players you could hang your hat on for 55, 60 starts a season. Ooh, did I just say 55? You know what I mean? But I'm quite enthused by this one as well. The fact Celtic seem to be almost having their business done without it all being in the public domain. They got close to getting it done without anyone knowing. It's came out now, but it seems to be further down the line by the time the stories came out, rather than loads of toing and froing and all that and getting excited and getting let down. And also, it just strikes me that this is a player, again, that the manager is telling the board to go out and get, and the board are saying to the manager, okay, boss, we will deliver for you. That's really refreshing in my eyes.
Yeah, as I say, it's just one of those times where I can't remember the last time this has really happened, where the board have just decided to go really, they've not just backed down, they've not backed down, they've not doubled down, they went all in, really, so far in this window. It's all the chips are being played. It's as if we're just at the casino and we've got all the chips and we're just flinging them about left, right, and centre. It's so refreshing to see a player coming in that nobody's really expected to be announced whatsoever. Because usually these things leak. I mean, we have difficulty enough keeping our squads under wraps, let alone signing a player
I know.
without anybody knowing they're coming in. So I think it's really refreshing. And I've got a sneaky feeling I don't think we're done yet either, because the news seems to be suggesting that there are certainly some more business to be done at Celtic Park.
That's the exciting bit, because the volume of signings we've made, if they were ever going to make them, they would normally be in the last few days of the window, probably after one dodgy result in January and we press the panic button. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or the manager loses their temper and basically we have to try and appease them in some sort of way. And we've been over the old ground. We've been over the old ground with regards to the the fact it was haphazard sort of loan signings, that were sticky plasters on positions that needed filled for the longevity. Douglas Hughes says you're a wee bit away from the microphone, Jonathan. You might want to get a wee bit closer to your iPad, mate. There you go. But it's a great point from Brown Warrior that I'm going to bring up. And he's saying he was brought into the Socceroos setup in 2017. Now, my understanding was it was Ange who first called up McGree for the Australian side. So there's a bit of a connection there. And you would guess that Postecoglou, once he went back into club management, has went, well, there's a few players I'm going to be keeping my eye on. Now, McGree's only 23 years old, Jonathan. So 2017, he would have been 18 years old. If he was getting brought into the Australian squad then, Ange clearly, and we do think Ange has an eye for a player. We do. That seems to be a universal thought process. So I'm willing to work with that as well.
Yeah.
Then I think it's quite exciting that, a guy that he was obviously, quite like the look of, but, as a late teenager, good enough to get in the national team. He's now 4 or 5 years later. Now he's got over 100 club appearances, whatever it may be, more than that now. He's now thinking, right, you're worth £3 million. I think Ange knows what he's getting with this guy as well. So again, he's coming from a spell in the UK already. So that should mean his bedding in time doesn't take as long as maybe some of the other recruits we've made. And also, he's worked with the manager before. These are two really, really key points, I think, Jonathan. And I think it's really exciting. John Duncan's agreeing as well. He's loving the fact that these are our manager's picks. Matt Gurr, yeah, I love it, mate. Is that a B team signing? Well, it'll be one hell of a B team if we've got £3 million buys in there. Now, Jono is a wee bit too far off the mic. We've brought it up a little. In comes Stephen Thompson. Jake McGree will start straight away. We need players ready to play with all the games coming up in the way they play now. Thanks for tuning in, Stephen. Now, Jonathan, I'm going to put that to you. Do you think Celtic are in a position, I'm going to word it slightly differently, where they can afford to be signing £3 million players that were, heavily wanted by Middlesbrough, we understand as well? Do you think they can really afford to bring them in, to not have them be viewed as certainly first team players? I don't think Ange is going to have a cemented first 11. I think it's very much going to be Ange wants a first team squad. So when one comes out, the other one goes in, and it's like for like. Do you know what I mean? Inevitably, you'll eventually have your favourites and your go-tos. That's a natural progression. But at this moment in time, I think he's in. My take on it anyway would be he's been signed to compete for a first team berth from the get-go. What do you make of it?
Yeah, no, I would 100% agree. I think when it comes to the signings that Ange is making this window, it's all about making sure he's got that strength and depth. We're going to have a lot of games to play, particularly when you add in the Conference League, where Celtic could potentially go quite far in that competition by all accounts, because the teams in that are certainly at our level. So he's going to need his full squad to deal with. And I don't think Ange doesn't really strike me as the type who's just going to be signing players just to leave them sitting in the reserves. No. He's going to be bringing in players that are going to be competing for those first team roles. You obviously talk about guys like your Tom Rodgers and your Turnbulls, and you wouldn't trust them to do 55 to 60 games a season. I'd go one step further with Tom Rodgers, and you probably feel you wouldn't get more than 60, 65 minutes out of him in a game before he's blowing out his arse, really. So you do need these different options, I think, to give you that sort of strength and depth. And again, it goes back to what we found out in the first half of the season. And I think the reason why we find ourselves in the position we are in the league, of being 6 points behind at the current time, is due to the fact that injuries have meant we have had to play weakened teams. Whereas hopefully, I agree with that. Yeah, hopefully in the second half of the season, once we've got these new signings bedded in, it will be quality replacing quality, and there won't be that drop-off in standard, which will hopefully, fingers crossed, and this is a theory, will lead to more points on the board. And it's quite clear, as we've discussed, the board have brought into that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Is she talking about me or you?
She's making me blush these days, mate. I think the good thing is as well, Celtic, like you were touching on earlier, Jonathan, it was a great point you made, is it doesn't feel as though, despite, the first half of the season we had injuries, like you were saying, and it was affecting team selection, it was affecting players playing out of position maybe slightly. Whereas now what it looks like we're trying to do is build a squad that is going to have like-for-like replacements and make a real fist of it. Now, the thing is with that is, I think with Ange Ball, and it was in the, you were talking about the injuries there. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. The injuries. Now, I think the way that Ange sets up the team and the type of training that we're doing, the type of intensity we're playing with, could lead to more injuries than maybe the average club, right? And I think what we're doing right now is getting a squad big enough to be able to handle when we pick up these injuries. Maybe Ange is saying, well, until I've had a year, 18 months with the troops, all sort of getting used to my methods, there is going to be players that pull up hamstring injuries and the like. And it's so important that I get players in right for the beginning of January to bulk up this squad to be able to cope with that in the final half of the season, because we don't want to end up empty-handed come the end of this season. There is a title to play for, and let's do it. Do you know what I mean? Let's go for it. And £3 million, I'm going to go back to it. £3 million to me should not be viewed. If Celtic had acted properly, I know it's all shoulda, woulda, couldas, but if we'd acted properly in the last decade, £3 million players should not be, we've spent, £3 million on a player out of nowhere. £3 million in modern football's fuck all. It's that simple.
It doesn't buy you much at all.
It doesn't. So,
Much at all.
it's the fact that this is seen as a big deal is maybe getting the Celtic board more sort of favourable sort of opinion at this present time. It feels like, we're really backing the manager here, but it's because they were asleep behind the wheel for 10 years that a £3 million signing in 2022 is seen as like a big investment. Push to that. I just think that's nonsense. But yeah, a few of the comments are coming in sort of alluding to, are we making plans for European football perhaps as well next year? Let's hope so. Let's absolutely hope so, because it's not about the European qualifiers so much this year, unless we finish second, but it's about having a squad that's ready, Jonathan, for pre-season from the beginning. And with, obviously, we're still going to all demand new additions in the summer. We're football fans. It's what we do. That's human nature. But what I want, though, is the real core of that squad to all be together from an Ange Postecoglou day one of pre-season, and hopefully with a title to be defending as well. That's what I would like. Hit Centres comes in, he's saying the new boys have got to hit the ground running. There's big matches coming up against Hibs and Alloa. Every match is a big match, Celtic, Hit Centres, and I'm sure it's the same with your team. I am looking forward to it. Now, it looks like Riley McGree, Jonathan, isn't the other one that we're looking at. Now, I appreciate putting you on the spot a wee bit with this one, because we don't know much about Mehdi Gaidi. What I've done, the research I've done, I mean, he only actually joined his club in United Arab Emirates League in August, I think, last year. He did win the Young Iranian Player of the Year, though. But this is his first season in the United Arab Emirates Premier League. And they might be a wee bit, sort of reluctant to sell him, only 6 months in. The reports suggest Ange is extremely determined to get this one. And what I found fascinating was, Ange was talking, it must have been 3-4 weeks ago, sat down in an interview, and he says, there's a lot of markets mate to tap out there, not just the Japanese one that I've learned about. And one of the countries being named was Iran. Now, it all ties in. Is this another example of a player Celtic have no idea about, but the manager knows all about? And we're going to hopefully back him on this one again. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the most refreshing thing, I think, about all of the transfer business that's been going on, is you can just tell that, particularly in this window, all the guys that are coming in and all the ones we're being linked with have clearly been identified, in my opinion, by Ange Postecoglou. I don't think there's really any doubt about it, that he's getting free rein to actually make the transfers. And how refreshing is that when you consider how many times you've gone onto these windows and you're not entirely sure who's making these signings, and you're just wondering where the heck's the next one's going to come from. In terms of, obviously, this player in particular, things a left winger by trade can play up front as well. So it's probably a good idea to get him in if that's what they're wanting to do, to hopefully challenge Jota if he was to sign on permanently. It does beg the question, I guess, though, Russell, that could spell the end for Mikey Johnson, perhaps, or you'd have to loan him out to make up space unless this guy coming in isn't going to be starting. But again, as we've touched upon, hard to see Ange bringing players in that he's not going to use and play. And I think, in fairness, Mikey Johnson, as much as he's not really done much to impress, let's be honest, so far this season, I think some of the criticism's a little bit over the top with him, to be completely truthful. But I think perhaps for him, a loan spell would be the next best thing if we were to get this boy in. What do you think? Do you think we should be getting rid of Johnston if we get another one in at the play left wing?
Well, there's another player being linked with departing Celtic, Jonathan. And we'll come to that in a wee bit, potential departures. I just think on the Gaidi one right now, and I will answer your question on that in a bit once we start talking about, obviously, the Stephen Welsh story that sort of came to light in the past sort of 48 hours. It's been a crazy 48 hours. But the thing is, with Gaidi, it strikes me, again, very much like McGree, that... Did I say McGeady there? Gaidi, not McGeady. He plays a bit like McGeady.
Back again, are we?
But again, see if this is guys that the manager's identifying and that it's from a market that he knows. Then I remember I said this in the pod 4 or 5 weeks ago with you. You were on it. I think it might have been the Saturday Double Doon show. And we were kind of we were being a wee bit naughty, but we said, do you think Postecoglou kind of likes the fact he's not brought anyone with him? Do you remember we said that?
We did say that.
And I said, do you think there's a wee bit of him that's kind of going, well, if I don't have anyone else around me, they've got no one else really to go to but me. And that means I can identify the players. I've already got a fucking list this size, and I can go, well, you've not brought me in a new head of recruitment, You've not brought me in even any coaches or that, or, I've not got anyone. So you're going to need to go on my word and listen to the fans. And all the fans are chanting his name, singing his name. He's built up, a card so, a deck, hand of cards. His hand is so strong with the board now because of his popularity, because of the fact he's got a trophy in the bank already, because of the fact he's improved the football department so much, because we've been so enthused by the players that he's brought in the last window, that I think he's right now got Celtic over a barrel almost. And it's almost like it's worked so much in his favour, not having a head of recruitment, spoiling the party for him. It's just Angie's way or the highway. It's very old school. It reminds me now, the volume of players we're now getting linked with, particularly ones that we've never heard of before, is now reminding me of when Martin O'Neill first took over. And the sort of statements, albeit they were household names he was looking at, you knew they were all identified by Martin O'Neill. That was the thing. They were all very much in his mould, a very different mould to Ange Postecoglou's, may I add. But I like that because O'Neill had an identity that he was going for. He knew exactly what he wanted to do with the team, and he was back to go do it. Okay, we're not maybe spending 6 million on every other player right now, or 5 million, whatever it was back then. But the thing is, the manager's been backed in a similar way. Do you not think? And this allows the team, Jonathan, to get an identity of the manager, and quickly. He's only been in the job 6 months.
Yeah, I think it's quite remarkable how he's managed to firstly win over the support so quickly, and I think that's been absolutely key in terms of getting the backing in January. I'm not entirely sure whether or not we should have perhaps seen this coming, because he's obviously been quite a fearless person, and when he decides he's coming over, from Japan after knowing he was not going to be everyone's cup of tea after the Eddie Howe debacle in the summer, a lot of Celtic fans would have felt massively disappointed when he first came in. So, you've got to look at it and think he's seen all this and still decided, I'm going to take this job and I'm going to make the best of this and make a right good fist of it. And I think you're really beginning to see him come into his own. He's quite obviously a fearless person, quite happy to make his own decisions, make his own path in life.
Yes.
And that's exactly what he's been doing. And I think the board have realised, well, hang on a minute, he's getting results. He's got the fans on side. This guy could make us a good bit of money if we just give him some cash and let him have complete control. And as I say, it's been a long time since a manager has had such a free reign at Celtic Park. You're touching on Martin O'Neill, and it may well be that was the case, that was the last time somebody had such much control over the signings, because usually you would have a head of recruitment or a chief scout or something along those lines to actually help the management out. I actually quite like the fact Ange is just doing it all himself. And I think you're right. It allows him to build the team up in his image, and it allows him to build in that chemistry so that we're all fully prepared for the second half of the season. But also on another point as well, it actually prepares you much better for the European qualifiers. And I've been saying this for years. The key window for Celtic has really always been January, really, in the sense of, well, particularly when they were winning the league consistently, because the big games always come around in the summer. So you don't have time to bed players in when you're going straight into these qualifiers. So you should always be looking to get the players in January. And, you know, I think this is probably the first time in a very long time you can safely say, I think the board are actually forward planning, not just for the second half of the season, but also for next season and potentially Champions League football if they can win the league.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I happen to agree with you. I think there is a bit of forward planning going on there. Nearly said foreplay there. There's a bit of there's a bit of forward planning going on, and I think that's. Ange said in his interview, which was golden at the weekend for the Double Doon show. He released it, I think, 7:00. We went live at 9 on Friday. Me and Liam Collo, and the beauty of that was, of course, that Ange gave us a lot to discuss in what had been quite a quiet week up till then. So he gave us good value. And what he'd said was his plans for January, Jonathan, hadn't changed despite what had happened in the 5 months of the season. He says, this is all part of a plan. He says, my transfer window is not going to be a reactive one to our current position, you know, in the league or the points difference. He goes, I'm not reacting to that. He says, it's still, we are going ahead with the plan that we had in place. He says, Japanese players, for example, because I wanted Maeda. He says in the summer, it wasn't possible because they're mid-season in the J-League. He says it's very difficult. It's notoriously difficult to get players to leave with contract from Japan. So basically what's happened then is they've waited patiently in January, and the 3 players he identified in August, September, or as soon as he got the job, basically, he still went ahead and brought in, despite of what's happened in the 5 months ahead of him. Now, that may well be the case with the Iranian player. Perhaps he was a player on Ange's list, but we missed the boat because Ange got appointed so late. Do you know what I mean? Because he's moved to a club in August last year. So I think there's a lot to be encouraged about with regards to the identity of the players that he's bringing in. Now, Philip comes in with a slightly alternative view, and it's a wee bit of an example of flipping it, because he's saying maybe the gaffer's playing to the Boyce's tune as well, because looking at the spending, is it not the fact that he's bulking up the squad with the price range of the same price range of players as before? But he's just like this before as well, Jonathan, that there's no two ways when Postecoglou is put to the board as a potential candidate for the job. One of the attractive things will be it would have been pitched to him by the City Group or whoever it was that suggested Postecoglou, the City Group, right? And they would have said, mate, he'll know that league. He'll know it inside out. He's going to be able to get bargains from there. And they went, what? Bargains? We like bargains. And that may well have piqued the board's interest in Postecoglou as well. And maybe right now they feel that the expenditure on players right now isn't so bad. Do you know what I mean? Maybe they think, well, Ideguchi was 850,000. We were spending that on players that weren't even getting in the first team before yet. And just telling us this guy's ready for the first team. There's going to be resale value on these guys. So whilst it might look like Celtic's investing a hell of a lot, remember that these guys are all going to increase in value if they're playing well, Celtic's succeeding. And, we've all seen the improvements players have made under Postecoglou already that we didn't expect. Ralston being the prime example. I think, Tom Rogic coming back from the brink. I nearly said back from the dead, back from the brink. And I think as well, see, just one other thing I'm going to put to you, Jonathan. Say we do sign Jota. I know Feed the Bear's in the house. Yes, Feed the Bear. And he was saying he was concerned about us actually signing Jota on a permanent deal because of the costs of how much it will be. Now, I just feel that even if we do sign Jota, even if we do sign Gaida, even if we do sign Gaide, and even if we do sign McGree, as well as the Japanese players, that'll take us up to 17, 18 million. Yeah. Now, Jonathan, see, to win the Champions League, how much money does a club need to spend? 500, 600 million?
To win the Champions League or hundreds of millions of pounds.
600 million? What do you actually win in prize money and TV money? 140, 150? Mm-hmm. We're right now in a competition with 40 million, and we're not even spending half of that to try and win it. It's not always unrealistic as, it might sound. I actually think, and I've bantered on about this for ages, speculate to accumulate. You might be surprised. And I think, if we do spend the best part of £20 million in January, 15 to 17 million for a 40 million jackpot, I think that's still relatively conservative spending. When you look at every other competition out there to try and win the grand prize, you tend to spend more than what the actual prize money is. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it certainly, as I say, it seems to be coming back towards the fact that they are now willing to take a bit more of a punt when it comes to spending spending some cash. Certainly is quite an interesting one when you're looking at it as well. I take the point. Obviously, the board will be rubbing their hands because these are untapped markets. There's no two ways about it. And just looking into areas that in Scottish football terms have very rarely, if at all, been looked at. You don't look at players coming in from Iran particularly often. Even Japanese players have been few and far between in the last 2 decades since the millennium that I can think of. I can think of a couple off the top of my head that have played for Celtic. So there definitely is potential there that even if they were to spend a couple of million here and there, if they are to end up winning the league, getting to the Champions League, then automatically these players are now going to have a chance to showcase themselves on the biggest stage in club football. And, you know, if they do an impressive job there, you could easily be talking trebling, quadrupling the price you paid for them. So it seems an absolute no-brainer, even from the board's point of view, even if we want to be cynical and saying they're only doing it purely from a financial basis. I think it actually ticks all boxes on it. And if you look at that comment there, he spent 800 grand on Martin Hayes 30 years ago.
30 years ago, you know, it's not, this is like, Celtic need to get in the real world. We can't keep saying, you know, we're a big club and we should be following the Ajax model and stuff like that, or we should be as big as Ajax, or we're a bigger club than, I know Ajax is the common example, that's the only reason I'm saying it. To me, it's not, you know, it's Celtic that stopped moving with the times when they were with the times. And we appreciate the Martin O'Neill spend at that time was on par with a lot of Premier League teams. No one expected that to continue when the new revenue they started making really kicked in the mid-2000s. I get that. But what Celtic didn't do was consistently evolve. They did not evolve. And what they've done is now we're relying on Postecoglou to pull rabbits out of the hat, which is a wee bit unfair as well. But if that's sprinkled with signings like Cameron Carter-Vickers, Jota for £6 million and stuff, then I think that's more appeasable. If it was just to be 10 signings at around the £1 to £2 million mark, I think that would be, you know, really almost hanging the manager out to dry a wee bit. Do you know what I mean? Because he would get the blame for them all because they're all players that we know only he could have known about. But realistically, there would be players of a valuation that some you're going to get right, some aren't. But if we're going to be mixing it with getting the likes of Jota or Cameron Carter-Vickers in at £6 million each, as well as Angie's wee rough diamonds or bargain basement signings that he knows can come in and do a job, that's a decent wee blend for me. And Celtic should constantly be trying to, year on year, they should be looking at, you know, what did we spend and what did we make in prize money. And it's about time Celtic's prize money started getting up there again. And the second that happens and you'll start being encouraged to keep spending at a decent level as long as the prize money's still up there. Do you know what I mean? And that's how you attract better players. It's, you know, because if you're getting more prize money, you're in better competitions. It's all a knock-on effect. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, 100% agree. It makes absolute sense that, you know, if you speculate to accumulate, you get that additional bit of cash in, then there's always that potential there that you can end up making the team and squad a lot better. It builds the reputation up. It actually means you're going to have an opportunity for better players to actually want to come to Celtic. It's less of a pitch, to be honest, and that's something that I think Celtic are actually really having to scramble with when they're looking at players in the sort of leagues that they've normally been looking into, is that they're looking at it and thinking, right, do Celtic for a couple of years, then it's down to England. But I'm not even sure at the moment how many players are finding that as appealing as before, as seeing Celtic as an attractive option. They might be thinking there's better places to go as a sort of bridge to the Premiership because Celtic have been left so far behind. And I think that's another reason why they're looking into these markets that have been untapped, as well as because these players aren't getting opportunities elsewhere. So it kind of suits, if you like, both parties, if you like, because these players were unheard of, a lot of these players from Japan, and they're now getting a chance to come over, make a name for themselves at Celtic, and then they can potentially either become, you know, legendary status potentially here, or they could end up moving on and we flip them for a massive amount of cash. So for me, it's an absolute no-brainer. You've got to be speculating to accumulate, and it looks as if perhaps with the change in CEO, with Nicholson now appointed, and I think he got a bit of a hard time, I think it's actually looking like he might just understand that part of the concept, and we're seeing a completely shift in dynamic at Celtic Park at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that leads us on nicely to talk about Nicholson, because Obviously, I've tried to be funny in the wee banner thing when I was typing out earlier, thinking I was all clever and all that, you know. Nicholson is shining in January so far. Have Celtic given him free rein with Ange? You know, as Ange and Nicholson been sort of just told, right, we'll leave you to it this month. Are Celtic just acting like a big club again? I suppose we have covered that a wee bit already in the debate. But for me, I just think Nicholson was someone that was a wee bit derided when he got the job, probably by myself as well. I think I was putting up the old talking heads sort of gif, same as it ever was, because you felt the Don Mackay thing was going to be, and by the way, is it not great to see that getting spammed all over Twitter again? Jesus, you know, award-winning indeed. But I mean, when you look at the Nicholson appointment compared to the Mackay one, the Mackay one seemed like it was fresh. It was someone from left field that was going to come in and shake things up. Nicholson, obviously, he left after 3 months. We thought that he was maybe getting forced out because the old prehistoric ways were taken over. Then Nicholson gets appointed from within, and you think, fucking hell, this is going to be even worse. And what's actually happened is maybe you've got someone in there who has looked and seen everything from, you know, right, he's been under the bonnet. You know what I mean? He's had a look under the bonnet because he's been with the rest of the board and went, I know better than anyone where we're going wrong. I can identify the exact areas where we're going. I know when we've been too hesitant in transfers. I know why we lost Brendan Rodgers. You know, I know why we didn't get Ivan Toney and we got Albion Ageti. All these wee examples that add up.
Yeah.
John McGinn, you know, the list goes on. And maybe because of Nicholson's advantageous perspective on it, because he's been involved at such close quarters, instead of him being part of the problem, maybe he's actually going to be the solution, because he can see the problem better than any of us can from the outside. And he's identifying where Celtic went wrong and goes, business is going to change. And we're going to start getting business done. We've got the manager in. You've got to back him, whoever he is. So that's what I'm taking it as right now, is there seems to be a change of tact by Celtic. Nicholson seems to be very much driving that. But I think it's very exciting. Mark Bradley comes in. Good to have you on with us, and thanks for saying it's a great show, Mark. I appreciate it. He's saying, however, you might be missing the important bit about these signings. Big fees don't scare Celtic. It's big wages that do. I get that. But if you listen to that twat Joe Black on Twitter, you know what I mean? He thinks the wages are included in the transfer fee. Oh, we're laughing. But I mean, the thing is with that, Mark, is big wages, again, can all be afforded by a club that is regularly qualifying for high revenue competitions, i.e. your Champions League, or you're making latter stages of the Europa League, or you win the Conference League. I've seen a few people in the comments alluding to that being maybe worth a couple of quid if we were to go all the way. And why not? We're getting excited tonight. Why not? I think the wages thing all goes hand in hand. You should be able to work out and project if this player does well, or if this player is good enough. Why are they available at this price? How much are their wages going to cost? How much is the full package overall? And what do we project, you know, his potential sell-on fee being a couple of years down the line, if we are to be in the Premier European competition the next 2 years and he's featuring regularly, if we are to be winning league titles. And all this has got to be, this should be stuff we embrace, Mark, not be feared of. And I wonder if Nicholson's maybe changed this a wee bit, you know, and I you know, maybe changed that outlook a wee bit, and hopefully so, because for me there has been a shift, and Monty says don't get taken in by this board, keep your eyes open, and I get that, and I've already alluded to the, you know, my doubts, my cynical side of it. Monty, is Postecoglou there because he would be able to get his players for like £1 million, £2 million, and they've went, we'll see that at the bank, and then he can get all the blame for it if they don't work out rather than them. You know, of course I can see that angle as well. But right now, for me, there's been a shift in the transfer dealings in January, Jonathan, and you've got to give credit, I think, where it's due right now. And I don't think there's a Celtic supporter out there who's not been enthused by the conduct of both Nicholson and Ange Postecoglou so far in the January transfer window.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree. As I say, it's been one of the most refreshing transfer windows in many a year. Obviously, going back to touch upon Nicholson, I don't think he was particularly anyone's cup of tea when he first got appointed to the role. I think his background is in legal sort of side of things, so it seems a bit dull. Wouldn't think he would really know too much about the footballing side of things. Another yes man, a lot of people would have levelled at him and thinking it's just going to be a continuation of what we've all seen before, and it's the same movie all over again. What he has done is he's obviously taken a completely different route of this.
Yeah.
And for me, this whole thing has been spearheaded by both Ange, and I think Nicholson deserves a lot of credit for this as well, to be perfectly honest, in actually changing the strategy in this window. And hopefully it's a case that they will continue to do so. And my only concern, I guess it would touch back on what Monty was saying, is it could end up being a case that the board might well just do this for a couple of windows, get some success, and do the old Brendan Rodgers effect, and then put their feet up. For example, if Celtic were to win the league, do they then turn around and think we've got that Champions League money? Do we go again, or do we just put that in the bank for a rainy day and then watch things just unfold completely ridiculously like they have done so many times previously? And it'll be interesting. Do you think, Russell, this is the sign of a completely new era for the board with the statements they're making in January? Or do you think this is mainly a short-term measure because there is so much riding on this league championship and there is that possibility you can get straight into the Champions League, and that's why they are only acting this strongly in this window?
I think there's a couple of aspects to it, Jonathan, if I'm honest. I think, firstly, their popularity ratings, were at an all-time low. We know that with the protests and etc. last year. Even the potential appointment of Higgins, don't want to go back into that, but obviously we know we've had protests this year, whether they be silent, whether they be tennis balls, etc. And I think right now they definitely need to start currying favour with the fans again. I certainly think that they've tried to do that, obviously, by backing the manager. Do I think we're seeing wholesale changes going forward? Sadly not. I think a leopard never changes its spots, and I tend to kind of side with Monty on that aspect, that realistically, you can't see this board completely changed. If they were to get 40 million this summer, my take on it would be, right, we're in the Champions League group qualifiers. We spent 17, we got in 40. That's all the season tickets sold like that. We're going to get TV revenue, etc. from the Champions League as well. Now, Ange, what do you need for the team? There, go get a couple of £8 million players. That would be my logic. I'm not saying just because they're £8 million. I just mean go get players of the next rung of the ladder up. Get a couple of them to add to, because he's obviously built now the foundation of his squad. And then the summer it would just be a couple, one or two players. Make sure they're elite. You know what I mean? Especially by Celtic standards anyway.
I think it's a great point. I think it's a great point. I think also if you're looking at stuff like that as well, it wasn't, it does feel a long time ago now, but Celtic used to it was never about getting into the groups in the Champions League stages. It was about competing when you got into the Champions League. At the moment, it's almost like get into the groups and just take 6 pastings and finish bottom on nil.
Oh, totally.
And it's almost as if we're playing for the participation award, which is kind of just ridiculous for a club of Celtic's size and stature. And they should be looking at it and thinking if they can get themselves into the Champions League, they should be arming Postecoglou as best as they possibly can so you can make a proper fist at the group stages, because it's been so long since we actually last had, even a crack at the Champions League in terms of actually getting into the groups. And I think you're going back, must be 8-9 years since we were actually properly competitive in the Champions League groups. And I think it's Lennon's second or third season, his first stint when they got out. But it can be done. And that team wasn't full of absolute world beaters. That team was built around a lot of cheap buys as well. You had Effie Ambrose and Kelvin Wilson playing centre backs. It can be done, but I think the board have to really back the manager, and they have to be willing to make a step up and thinking the Champions League group stages shouldn't be the be all and end all for a club like Celtic. Celtic should be competing in these group stages and be trying to get out of the groups, and then from there you obviously just take what you can get if you get into the knockout rounds. But I certainly don't subscribe to the belief that you should be playing just to play these qualifiers, get into the groups, and then that's a brilliant success, and it doesn't matter what happens from there on in. And I fear that is kind of where the board has drifted to in recent years, and they've used the excuse of how football has evolved to kind of just back that up.
Yeah, I agree with that. And there's Kenny kind of alluding to what I was saying earlier. You know, the Banker and Wilson got their asses smacked to the AGM. They know the fans have had enough of their lack of foresight in taking the club forward. I think as well, one of the debates was we didn't actually feel Banker or Wilson were capable of taking the club forward. And that's why I'm very much of the opinion that Nicholson's been given a freer rein. He's very much got Ange beside him with this. And the two of them are kind of navigating January in a way that I think we should all be really excited by it. Now, I know there's a lot of debate going in the comments. Try and keep it clean, guys. I can't be fucked with like going through it all and having to like block folk. Do you know what I mean? It's really not my style. Just get back to talking about the points getting raised on the show, talking about real clubs and that. I mean, it's honestly so boring. And that's a general comment. I'm not aiming that at anyone in particular. It's just a general comment. Just, you know, try and keep it clean. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I just think right now it's a time to be excited. Whether we get McGree and I can't remember his name now, Gaidi, then, you know, if we don't, then fair enough. But it's brilliant to think that we're making bids for these guys at £2-3 million on Angie's say so. And we'll wrap that up there because potentially it won't all be incomings, Jonathan.
Yes.
And that leads us nicely to Stephen Welsh, potentially going to Udinese. Now, there was a bid rejected. It was a loan with an option to buy, is that right?
That's what I believe it was, yes.
And it was 1.7 million or something like that.
Around those figures, yeah.
Now, reports are suggesting Udinese will come back in again, Jonathan. Now,
Yep.
does that suggest to you, Celtic, I've said no, but not no, and the door's shut to Udinese? Are they flirting with the idea?
Well, I think everyone has their price, and Welsh is probably more of a rotational player now, particularly with Julian getting back to fitness and now actually beginning to train. So it does look as if Julian should be back in the mix very, very soon. I know I've been saying it for months, but it does feel as if Julian is almost there now, which obviously means Welsh will drop further down the pecking order. I like Welsh. I think he's done a really good job since he's came in. I think I said on this very show a few weeks ago that I thought Welsh was a great backup centre-half to have. I'd be reluctant to let him go, truth be told. I think he could do far worse than have Stephen Welsh in and around the club. And we obviously touched upon it last night as well. When it comes to Welsh and Starfelt, I don't think there's been an awful lot between the two of them performance-wise so far this season. And I did say last night, I'd be interested to see what other people make of this, as well as if they had both came through the academy together, Starfelt and Welsh. Would Starfelt still be getting games ahead of him? And I'm not so sure he would. I think sometimes Starfelt's reputation, being a Swedish international, the fact he's obviously got good pedigree, played for some good European clubs, counts in his favour a lot more. And I feel a little bit like Welsh is sometimes overlooked. I actually thought even last season, I thought he was one of the better players in what was an absolute car crash of a season. So I'd be reluctant to see him go. But back to your original point, do I think Celtic would sell him? I think they would if they got the right price. And it's probably why they've just kind of palmed them off ever so gently and almost offered them to come back in again. And if Udinese can meet whatever Celtic's valuation is of the player, I would imagine they may well look to move him on, which would be regrettable and I think a mistake on our part, unless we're talking crazy money.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. I think with regards to Welsh, I think he's done a very admirable job in difficult circumstances at times, Jonathan, as well. You know, brought out the cold to play Rangers last season, you know, in front of no crowd. And he was one of the only players that probably got pass marks then. Then he was out the team again for a number of months under Lennon. And then this year I felt he was a wee bit harshly treated, being dropped as well at times, if I'm honest. For me, though, again, you can't have it both ways. If Postecoglou doesn't rate him and wants him out, then we need to back Ange the same way we back him with players coming in. Another alternative view I've got, now, it's just an alternative view, would be, do Celtic need to let a couple of players go for some sort of fee this month to accommodate the spending that the projected spending that could end up happening this month if all targets are to be signed? Could that be an element in it?
Yeah, there's every possibility. Celtic historically, usually when they go on big spends, there's
brilliant, Brown Warrior, mate.
That is the comment of the evening, I think, so far. I've kind of lost track of what I was talking about there. What are we talking about?
We're talking about Stephen Welsh.
Talking about Stephen Welsh, yes, we're talking about Welsh. Yeah, I think it makes more sense to keep him, as I was saying, rather than let him go elsewhere. In terms of obviously the other point you'd raised about having to sell somebody potentially to deal with the outlay that Celtic are obviously going to spend this window. Historically speaking, Celtic normally when they spend big in a window usually have one up their sleeve they're going to get rid of and chuck for 15-20 million pounds. It's been proven to be a fact historically, but I don't think that's going to be the case in this particular window. I actually think Celtic will stick with what they've got, and if it's anyone's going out, I think it will just be bit part players, rotational players, and they'll probably then reassess in the summer, which again leads me to the cynical side with the board that they may well end up sabotaging the squad to try and sell one of their prime assets right before qualifiers begin again potentially, or indeed you've got Champions League group stage football to look forward to. I would agree with Kenny though on the point Welsh did just sign a contract as well recently, as Kenny rightly says, he's now tied up to 2025. So I don't, and given the current market, we're saying £3 million doesn't buy you much. 1.6 million is a little bit insulting, if you ask me, for Stephen Welsh. I think it should be a bit higher if they were going to actually sell it.
Well, I think that's where we next need to go down. Let's say hypothetically, and you know, I don't think I'm miles off the money here. See if Udinese had been told a flat no, and Udinese were told this deal ain't happening. Welsh is important to us. Important youngster. There is no, he's not for sale. I think there has to have been a wee bit of, like I was saying earlier, a wee bit of foreplay, and I think there's been a wee bit of, well, 1.7 million isn't enough, but the door's been left ajar on that one. That's the vibe I'm getting. Why would Udinese be coming back in with another bid? So for me, that means that this isn't over as of yet. If it isn't over, hypothetically, Jonathan, and let's say we are selling Stephen Welsh, just for a wee bit of gossip. Let's say today we are selling Stephen Welsh. How much money would you sell Stephen Welsh for in January? We are selling him, right? That's the theory. Just say he's going. Definitely. Will we sell him?
I would say you're probably looking at least 3.5 million for me personally. I would say so, because I think that's it's almost as if it's the going rate. I mean, you look at some of the players that we've sold and bought of late that just haven't been up to much at all. That don't really seem to even have the same level of quality as to what you'd expect. You look at two obvious ones last season being Ayeti and Barkas, which you fought to £10 million on those two players. And neither of them have really been up to much. I think Welsh has done, as I say, a pretty reasonable job when he has played. I don't really feel there's any reason to be selling him on the cheap. I think he has got a bright future at Celtic if he wants to stay around. I think Ange still has him as part of his plans. Otherwise, he wouldn't have signed him on that contract. So I don't think Celtic will sell him for anything less than 3. But I think it would be between 3 and 4 is what they'd probably maybe be tempted with, purely because Welsh is probably not going to be making the step up to being a first-team regular in the immediate future, particularly, as I say, when you've got a guy like Chris Julian back, and if he hits the ground running, then Welsh is going to drop further down the pecking order. It's as simple as that. So for me, I think it would be somewhere around that £3 to £4 million mark is what might get Celtic talking.
Yeah, I mean, it concerns me. If it was me, I wouldn't sell him. I'm agreeing with the comments that are flying in. I wouldn't sell him. I just think this is the sort of player that should be our sort of benchmark for the other youth players coming through. We should be a club that's always promoting from within and trying to get them embedded in the team. And it's never going to be an overnight thing unless you're a Kieran Tierney, a real rare example where he played once and you knew, holy shit, this boy's going to be a first-team regular from the get-go. But, Welsh right now to me is getting used in enough amount of games that he's getting good first-team experience. He's good cover right now, but he's still getting a good taste of first-team experience. He's maturing all the time. He's still getting to work with Ange, so he's developing his game on training all the time as well. I just wouldn't be. I'd be loath to sell him. For me, it's Ajeti, Barkas, Bolingoli. They're the priorities. Sell all of them for £1 million each. There's your £3 million, and there's far more in wages saved, and Stephen Welsh is still a Celtic player. That would be my take on it. I know that might be surprising because Bolingoli cost £3 million, Ajeti cost £5 million, Barkas cost £5 million. But you've got to cut your losses eventually. I would take $1 million for all three of them. Then you're up to your sort of Welsh transfer fee potentially. And then you've saved fucking 50 to 60 grand in wages. That's what I would do. I've got absolutely no real desire to be selling a young player who's came into the team, never particularly let us down. The odd mistake here and there, but that's to be expected. How else are they going to learn? And at the first, the first bid that comes in or the first sign of interest, I don't want us batting our eyelids at the likes of Udinese or anyone else for that matter when it comes to selling Stephen Welsh. Now, Jonathan, this time next week we'll be playing at Hibs at home. Will there be a Monday club?
Certainly will be.
I'm tempted to watch it on camera, Jonathan. I'm thinking about the real life reaction, and I'll give the comments up. I think it's going to be a he's goal effort anyway, so I might just watch it. My laptop's there. I've got a big monitor here, and my laptop's down here. So I'm just thinking I could watch it like this, and then the camera's still on me, and then I'll be like, yes, if we score, when we score, even.
It'll be a bit more like the old school stuff they used to do on Sky Sports. Remember that fan commentary sort of running thing you used to get? Can't remember what they called it. Somebody will know. Somebody will know what I'm talking about. But they used to do the old fans would do like running commentary whilst watching the games. But I think,
yes, I just think it could be a good laugh doing that. So I might do that, and then we'll come on and do some post. I'm calling, by the way. See, anytime we do post match, it's just called post match pish, right? That's what I'm calling it. That is the name of the show, post match pish. And I think the two of us could do a Monday club maybe from 10 till 11.
yes.
And it was a bit past your bedtime, Jonathan, but 10 till 11 could be. I think that could be good next Monday, and I might watch the game on camera. Do you think we should do that? Should we do it? What would you call it? Watch along?
Yeah,
we could do that.
I'll get the Red Bulls in. I'll be okay. I'll manage to stay up till 11 just for this once.
Yeah,
just for this
right.
once.
Yeah, so we could do that. I mean, I'm not going to give you fan commentary, Bruce, that they used to do on Sky Sports. Sky Sports were actually ahead of their time with the fan media. That was like they dipped their toes into fan media when they were doing the fan zone and all that. When you look back, there will be a lot of swearing if you watched it live. Well, Liam, I hope you can handle it. Everybody, I love it, Kevin. That's a brilliant name. Let's do a Bhoycie fan cam. That's good. Yeah, Boyce'S fan cam. We'll do that, mate, next week. Why not? And Montag and Drag, says Brown Warrior. I'm not playing CMO 102 at the same time, Red.
How much think you think this guy's got? How many screens do you think this guy's got, Red?
But yeah,
you got the CCTV cameras everywhere in that room.
I know, but there's John Duncan. He says post-match pish. I want that T-shirt. That could be good. Philip DeMarco, don't worry, mate. I've seen you commenting this the last few times. I am going to play the theme song at the end. I promise you, mate. Don't you worry. We will play at the end of Rolling a High. Now, just for a wee bit of banter, and because everyone seems to be talking about it on social media, Celtic fans, podcast people, and Twitter. It's a load of shite, Jonathan, but it is entertaining. The past 48 hours have been crazy, so we're reading. I mean, is everyone taking social media a wee bit too seriously? Are people doing podcasts? And I don't mean anyone in particular, but is there like a sign that like folk doing podcasts? I mean, I've seen someone else, I'll not name them, but taking photos at parties, and almost like the way they've dressed up the tweet was as if like, they'd made a celebrity appearance there and all this bullshit. Is there a bit of fake celebrity culture creeping into it? And, do people kind of need to just take a wee step back and go, it's only fucking Twitter. If you've got X amount of followers and you put up a good point, you're going to get X amount of likes, maybe more because it will get RT'd. If you put up a daft comment, you're going to get X amount of daft comments back and obviously a lot of RTs for it as well. I mean, what's happened is, obviously the past couple of days, it's been blown out of all proportion. We're seeing statements. And I mean, for me, it all stems from the top. If you're hanging about with someone who's way up their own arse, and that's meant to be your leader, then you end up coming up with words that sound a wee bit pretentious, shall we say, to say the least. And I think Twitter is always going to highlight that. We all know the game that we're in when you're on Twitter and you've got 3,000, 4,000, 10,000 in some cases followers. I just think sometimes the comments are just banter back. Don't get caught up in them all. There's sometimes, I mean, I've been ripped on a lot of Rangers Twitter feeds for the hair and all that shit. And I kind of, a lot of the time, they're not hating on you, they're just ripping the piss at you. It's funny. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think then there's the other side of it. And the other side of it is people go too far and they get too personal with the comments. And that's why you then see people flapping a wee bit. And I think that needs to maybe calm down. But the most important thing is we're all Celtic fans. We're all Celtic fans at the end of the day. And, you know, I just think maybe just because you're on a, you know, if you're on a platform, I mean, we're doing this to 126 people right now. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make the size of my bobby any bigger, Jonathan. Do you know what I mean? It's not one of those things. I'm like, oh man, 126 folk like me. Now I'm Jesus Christ. Do you know what I mean? And I'll never go aloof with it all. It'll all just still be on the bus banter. Do you know what I mean? And I think maybe when it comes to tweeting, and that's for example, like the reason I'm talking about this is obviously what's happened the last couple of days with one of the folk I used to work with, and it was a stupid tweet, but you know, she's not a stupid person, she's a good person. And it just came over wrong, and then, you know, statement of clock and stuff's probably just gonna have, you know, made it stretch another 24 hours, the circus that surrounds it. But I think, you know, for me, it's like I want to call, you know, a post-match show post-match pish, because it's not faking it, it's not manufactured, it's genuinely like it's just me talking pish after a game. Keep it down to earth. Remember who you are. You know, we all do this for fuck all money. We're not like cutting about in, you know, Bentleys and that. Well, some of us, most of us do it for no money. We all know other people don't. But, you know, the amount of spam you're seeing right now, fucking hell, award winning. But I think we should all be able to, on Twitter, take the piss at each other if we make a James Hunt it. And I think as well, never cross that line where you're getting personal and you're having digs at people that goes too far. Do you know what I mean? I think if somebody calls me Wuzzle Gummage or that, you know what I mean? I'm not going to carry myself sleep over it. Do you know what I mean? But then if someone wants to, you know, I was called a racist last year at one point because I couldn't pronounce Postecoglou's name. That didn't sit well with me. And my advice would be to everyone when it comes to Twitter, you know, just calm down. You know, I don't think some of the patterns as deep-rooted as people want to take all offence to. And I also think some people go studs up too far and can end up, you know, really causing maybe mental health issues for some people as well. So there's a fine line between it, but I like a wee bit of banter. The Glasgow CSC, well, the thing is with the controversies being from the same podcast, you know, I think they thought they got rid of everyone was meant to think they'd got rid of the person that was getting dressed up as, you know, someone who was causing, what was it, the Oliver Encham tweet by, you know, he who must not be named. What was it? Fucking calling me divisive and shit like that. You know, I think he's got a few messes to tidy up, and you know, spamming out 6-month-old videos of Don Mackay doesn't quite cut it. But he won't address it because he's spineless. You know what I mean? And that's just what happens. And yeah, I agree. They are full of their own self-importance at times, Michael. And that's, you know, when it collapses in front of your eyes at the last 48 hours. The individual, I would show a wee bit of concern to because I like her. I don't think she did herself any favours, but I wouldn't like to see her getting any abuse. But you know, when you see it, the actual reflection it has on pods is because people think they're taking each other and themselves too seriously these days. Douglas Hughes nails it. Have a laugh, have a beer, have fun, don't abuse. That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
And I think maybe Twitter at times start using it as the tool it's meant for. Promote your pod if you do a pod. Put up some shitey, funny gift every now and then. Put up, you know, a funny article that you've read. Share your favourite song. Have a carry on. If you want to rip me for, you know, the state of my cooking being peely wally and probably got the thinnest mullet in the world, that's all good to me. I can handle it. If you can't handle it, don't go.
Social media's probably no for you.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I think, John Duncan, that Encham post was shite. Yeah, the backtracking was even better though, John, wasn't it? The next day, under the other alias account, you know, the other account, we'd like to express our thanks to Russell. Fucking give us peace. Anyway, on that note, we will go. P. McGinley, Russell Boyce, king of the podcast. He gets it. Have a laugh, talk pish. Mate, I hope every single one of us can do that. Danny boy, I agree with nothing you say, but on that last muck you were on, I only watched you. At least you believe what you said and didn't spew up someone else's pish. Love it. Jackie, I agree. Social media is meant to be fun. Jackie, life's meant to be fun. And on the Boyce bus, that is what we are going to do right here, is have some fun. My big thanks to Jonathan Boyce for joining me on the Monday Club. Thanks for your great input as always, mate. That's been over an hour already. We're going to let you get back to it. We'll be back Wednesday night for some Championship Manager 0102 streams, because that is good fun. And then we'll be back Friday or Saturday for the Double Doon show. If anyone wants to come on, because I still need a guest, fucking hit me in DMs, because I need a guest for the Double Doon show. Anyway, on that note, I'll see you all later. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for jumping on the bus. Good night.